Hello, good morning. Well, it's morning here in beautiful cloudy Texas. Shoot, it's not even cloudy anymore. It was very exciting. It's cloudy this morning, kind of bringing the temperature down, kind of hoping that would be the case today, but it looks like the sun's going to be out and bright as ever. For folks in the United States, I hope that you had a great Independence Day yesterday. Got to maybe enjoy some fireworks and some barbecue and all the good stuff that goes along with the holiday. I got to check out some local fireworks and it was really, really enjoyable. Just a lot of folks in the community came together. Super relaxing, an absolute blast in the literal sense. But it's great to be here on stream, and it appears that my voice is hopefully coming through on this one. I might even actually check, honestly, because I can't tell for sure necessarily. Yeah, so I also have the stream open on my phone. It's just so many technical things to come together, and I'm trying to figure out all right, there we go. Beautiful. My phone wasn't updating to it. Oh, you can see my dog's tail. Yes, so we are joined by a couple of my dogs today. I have 3 dogs, and we'll see how they behave or don't. But they're generally pretty good. One of them hangs out in the office just about every day and is just kind of hangs out, and then one of them gets a little more needy, so she might be coming in to demand some pets or something. And then we are expecting people to come for some construction things, so as soon as that happens there'll probably be a massive amount of barking, so I might have to mute it temporarily. But yeah, so happy to be here. Hope everyone's enjoying this end of your week. Of course, we're going to do a little bit of coding today. I'll tell you a bit about what I'm working on. Get you up to speed with where I'm at right now. And it's actually, I thought about kind of redoing it, and I might, just to sort of walk through the steps, but it's it's amazing how incredibly quickly you can get to that next stage with Squid. So the steps that I took to get where I currently am just did not take long. And now I'm already in the stage where things are going to be taking longer, because it's more working on the view and just the different components, because I'm working on a React app. But yeah, let me just sort of walk back, show you what I've done thus far. And yes, and I apologize. Yes, I am I do use light mode. I hope you will forgive me for using light mode for my computer. Due to some visual processing issues that I have, I tend to use a specific monitor that's like a e-ink monitor, if you can think about kind of like a classic Kindle or something like that, that has it doesn't have the flicker of a traditional monitor. And I find that works. It's much more effective for me in terms of eye fatigue and preventing migraines. But as a result, if you've ever used one of those, you know that if it had a bunch of dark on it, that just doesn't, the light doesn't come through, because there's no light to it. So it is very difficult to view things if they're in dark mode. So yes, I apologize. I know in general, light mode can be very unpleasant for people. And on my phone, I do tend to use dark mode for the same reason. You probably want to see that. But yes, I'm going to be in light mode. So I apologize in advance for that. I hope that's not too much of a distraction going forward. But yeah, but here's what I want to show you. And you're like, what do you want to show me? You're not showing me anything. I will we'll get there. It's always interesting if there's actually API keys are hidden within Squid. So honestly, there's nothing by default that I would show that's not okay. But anyway, let me get this over here, and then I'm gonna add it to the screen. You ready? Well, am I ready? No, of course not. What are we doing here? Share my screen. Look at that. Beautiful. Awesome. So here's where we are right now. So just picking something random here. What I wanted to show is so that when you go into Squid Cloud Console, which is at console.squid.cloud, but also you can get there if you just go to, as you can see, I go to my blog a lot, our blog. If you go to Squid Clouds, you can just go to sign in or start for free, and that's gonna get you to the console as well. And if it's your first time doing that, it's gonna put you into our onboarding experience, and I highly recommend trying out one of the apps. The To-Do app is going to be multiple steps in an application that shows you how to input code and kind of, it walks you through what some of the different components of Squid are and how you can implement them. So you kind of have a decent primer for how to get started is the idea. And then there's one that's AI centric. And I think that what I'm going to be showing you today is going to cover a lot of that. So anyway, when you go through that as much as possible, I know I confess, I always skip the onboarding experience, or almost always, especially when those like little tooltips pop up on the screen. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to remember this anyway. But it really is useful because there's so much that Squid can do. And it's just nice to be able to actually touch some of those different features off the bat and get your sea legs, so to speak. But anyway, once you get into the console and it looks like this, and here's your overview, and I just clicked on integrations. It doesn't really matter where I am. The important part is over here in the bottom left corner, you have this onboarding thing. And I love that. What that does is that it takes you back to the onboarding app. So let's say you're already in Squid and you're like, oh shoot, I skipped the onboarding. And maybe you're right. Maybe Jen's right. Maybe I should actually do some of this perhaps. You can always get back to it. And when you do, you also have this third option here, which is I want to build an empty starter app. And that's really where we're going to go from here. Basically, when you click that, it gives you a command to, I'll just click it because I can just delete that. I just delete it afterwards. So you can name your app. If you don't, it just defaults to my app. We're going to call it delete, the classic delete. And at any given time in my documents folder on my computer, there's definitely like one project labeled delete, and I just have to delete it to create the new delete project, just progressively going through. You're in a bad situation when you're like delete 1, delete 2, delete 3, this time for real, so yeah, just like, anyway, I'm going to call it delete so I remember to delete it. Bear with me here. And you can click your cloud provider and region. If you don't have something specific in mind for a specific project, especially if you're just noodling along, the easiest and best thing to do is just go with the default of the AWS with the chosen region, and it'll be effective. And all that means is that your Squid backend, when deploys to that particular cloud. So you can actually choose where you want it to deploy. And we also have options for the right customer. If you are on a scale where you need something that's on-prem, talk to us and we can work on that as well. The point of Squid is to be entirely flexible, go where you need it to go, work with your existing stack, connect to the features that you have, and help you just build faster. So not to get too advertising, always walking that line. As soon as I start hearing myself, I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. So anyway, what you end up with here is this npx command that will create the empty starter project for you. And so I'm actually just going to go and I'm going to end up deleting this because it's called delete. So it's kind of like the rule. So I'm just going to go delete this application because we don't need it. But that's how you get where I've gotten so far. You get this empty starter project that has a React front end and a Squid back end, and it uses Vite. And if you've ever used the Vite framework for your React applications, when you create a new Vite front end, it just has this like default counter thing that looks a lot like this. You can see I changed it a little bit. Basically, you can increment this counter. It's just sort of, it's an empty project and it's got a button in it just to like show you to get started. And the difference is with our Squid version of it is this is actually implemented such that when you increment the counter, it actually writes that to the built-in database that is provided for you with any Squid application that you create, so that you can just get coding right right out of the box. And so that means, if you open it in a new window, if you close it and reopen it, that count is still going to be there because it is written to the database. So rather than it just being sort of a native thing that refreshes and then goes back to 0 every time you refresh, it's actually pulling that information, writing and reading from the database. But we don't need that counter to where we're going today. But this is just our starting point. So the idea that I've had is basically like, we went to a couple of events lately, and it's because there's so much to Squid. Sometimes it can be a little challenging to figure out, like, okay, what, how do we explain Squid in a way that's going to make sense to developers? Like, I don't want a lot of, I don't like word salad. If you say, like, if you go to like any tech website, that like landing page, no matter what it is going to have the same language on it. And you're like, what is this, right? What is this AI powered, cloud solution? Like, what does that mean? Any of it, right? Like, I want something that is tangible and clear, especially because, like, people are coming around. You have a very limited time to get the point across and see if it is the right thing for them. So we've got some demos that I've built previously that I think can really showcase some of the stuff that I like about it. But, I just don't know if they have like everything, everything we would need. I still have my background music playing, but I can't hear it on my end. That's kind of an interesting thing that I've noticed happens with my, it just, sometimes it seems to pull the sound. So I'm curious if the music is too loud or anything, or if it's really redundant, or if it's actually like enhancing things. Is it just like, I might pull it up on my phone just to be like super annoying. I'm sorry. I just want it to be a nice experience, sort of like trying to do the stream and making it as good as possible. For instance, I just switched it to 1080p, which I like. So now you're going to hear an echo. So enjoy. Oh, now I can hear my music. Okay. Cool. Well, the stream on my phone keeps like, this is high quality television, folks. Yeah, love it. I'd say it's working pretty good. I'm happy. Let's get to. Yeah, it's, I think it's still a little loud. That's my thing. I'm going to turn it down just like a wee bit. But I don't know if it's just, hopefully it just goes enough into the background that it's not the redundant, like, it's just it's like the same 5 notes over and over again. Cool. Love it. Anyway, how are we feeling? Let's get back to the problem at hand, right? So yeah, as I was saying, like, I need a hook. I need an app that is fun and interesting. And like in the past, for other products, I've found that something that has a gamified, interactive element to it is really helpful. And how does AI incorporate into that? Because that's really something that we have all of these features, and what makes our AI offering special is that you can connect it to these different features. So you can connect it to a database, not just the built-in database, but any database that you connect to Squid, no matter the source, that allows you to take actions on that database, use it as context. Same thing with like connecting it to storage. Like maybe you want to, maybe you're going to be generating a file or pulling a file, like downloading something, putting it back. Like the fact that it connects to these other features is what makes it special. So really trying to showcase that. And the idea that I've had is that, it can be a trivia game. And my first thought was like, oh, it could be a trivia game about squid, and I can supply our documentation as context. But the issue with that, of course, is like, if people are coming to visit our booth for the first time, and maybe there's a decent chance at this point that they haven't even heard of squid, right? They're not going to be able to answer questions about trivia, and yeah, it's just a little bit of fun then. Like there's some, guessing involved, but maybe some of it's more obvious than others, and you can learn a little bit about squid through the process, was kind of what I was thinking. And I think that is possible, but I also like the idea that you could have Squid AI build an agent that can make a trivia game about anything. You simply supply the context on any topic that you want. So any documentation you have on any website, you could supply as context, and then the agent will create those trivia questions for you. It will write them to the database for you, and then you can play the game with that. So, I would have some kind of default options that you could choose out of the box. And then if people come and they're like, oh, I know a lot about this topic, if we can find a website or some context that they have on it, we could supply that right there on the fly, and then generate a trivia about it. So that's kind of the idea. And so with that, let's take a look at where we are right now. So here I am back in the Squid Cloud console. And notice I'm in the dev environment. There's two environments when you create a Squid app. There's the prod and the dev. And as the names kind of suggest, prod would be your production application. So if you're if you're ready to deploy, if this is a live production app, that would be the one that you're using. But when you're developing and testing, you use the dev environment. And the dev environment includes serving locally, which is what I'm using right now. Basically, you run the app locally, including the backend, so you can make use of your services while you're building and testing, and then it won't be live and it won't affect the live version of your application. So here in this integration section is any of the services that I have connected to my Squid app. So by default, I have a built-in database. I have a built-in Apache Kafka queue for messaging, and I have a built-in storage bucket. So that you have a version of those for your dev environment, you have a version of those for your prod environment. They are completely separate. They don't, they're completely separated resources. So you don't, again, while you're building and testing, you don't have to be concerned about potentially having some catastrophic effect in your live application. And I've added another integration to that, which is this says trivia generator. And what it is an AI agent. So if you want to add an AI agent to your application, you can do that for the most part programmatically. But this one first step of saying that you want to add it for now, you do through the Squid Cloud console. So if I want to add a new one, I go to add, I give it an integration ID. Do you know what ID I'm going to give it? Delete. This is just for demo purposes. And then I'm going to say integration. And this, I've noticed that when I'm on stream, when I try to add stuff, there's a huge lag. And I can only assume that's, I can only assume that's because I have pretty bad upload speeds. No, really bad upload speeds during the day. Decent ones at night. I don't know if there's other people in the area that are, maybe other people are working from home or something like that. But yeah, it's just, I assume it's a throughput issue or just a traffic issue. I have decent download right now. I have about 100 megabits down, which is, not bad for satellite internet, I would say. But yeah, there we go. Here it is, delete. And if I go to profiles, this is where you're kind of adding the purpose and the behavior of your AI agent. And this is something you can edit, you can change, you can make multiple profiles so your agent can serve multiple different purposes. And then in your client, you just specify which one you're looking to connect to so that you can link them together. And we're going to kind of look at some of those things today. But yes, so if I go add a new profile, again, I have a profile ID. This is something that I want to pick to make it easily identifiable to me as the developer in my code, to know the purpose of this profile so that when I'm writing, I know off the bat what it is for. So I'm going to call it delete. So I know what it's for. and you get to pick whatever model you want. So you're not, it's not just a wrapper for ChatGPT. You can use any model that you want. You can change them if need be. It's even possible to supply your own large language model. And, there's, again, just that unending flexibility of all the building blocks that you need to build your app is just simply what we want to supply. So I tend to stick in the GPT 4.0 territory. You can set your profile as public. And what this means is that in terms of the security functionality that you put on it, it's basically saying that you're giving permission for anybody to be able to chat with the chatbot. Generally, I keep this toggled off and I write security functionality on the back end. This is something where you could say, like, I only want authenticated users to be able to chat with it. I only want specific actions to be able to take place. You can just set whatever functionality you want. You can say if the user ID is on this specific list in the database, or if they have a specific attribute on their token, like, you can just customize it however you need to. And so you could set it as public, or you could do this customized rules. So I'm just going to add it. And then from here, I have instructions and context. And these ideas are sort of the backbone of your agent. The instructions is like the behavior that you expect it to do. And the context is the information that it can pull from. In this context, in this case, can be any kind of documents, images, your usual unstructured data. So this might be things like internal manuals or anything that the model wouldn't be trained on, because the large language model is only going to have the information that it was provided up until whatever point that was. So if you need things that are changing or updating or on the fly or internal, anything that it wouldn't be trained on, this is where you would supply that context. So if I click on that, you can see that you can you can write raw text as context. You can provide the URL to a website, and the information on that web page would be the context. You can upload files, and again, you give it a title similarly, just so that you are explaining its purpose, basically. So anyway, I'm just going to delete this integration and show you the one that I've made. So here is my trivia generator AI agent that I created previously. And here are the instructions that I gave it: to create 5 multiple choice trivia questions based on the provided context. Give the result in JSON with the following fields. And the reason I'm putting it in JSON is because I'm going to use this formatting to write it to the database. And I chose this at first based on a framework that I was planning on using, but I found out that they don't have TypeScript bindings for it, and I just don't feel like dealing with that. So I've decided to bake it all myself. So it's going to be more work for me, but not more work from the Squid side. Like, this is it's just going to be like building out the components and stuff. Like this, again, the Squid part is always so easy. I end up spending such a little time on it. And then I'm like, okay, great. Do you want to watch me struggle with CSS for 3 hours? Or, maybe I should just do that part off stream, And then this is just like something like there's like some backticks that are included in the response formatting that wasn't helpful to me when I was trying to write it to the database. And this is actually I found the easiest way to get rid of it. And I included this message: if you have low confidence, don't make something up. Now, you really don't have to include that. It's kind of habitual for me, but we have some technology built into Squid. We've taken steps to reduce hallucinations. You can never fully, like, the nature of how a large language model works, that simply under the hood, you're looking at really high level matrices just performing math at scale. The result is certain things just aren't going to quite turn out right. They just aren't. It doesn't have embeddings for every single concept that's out there. In the same way that, we as individuals are wrong about things sometimes, right? Like, it's just sometimes every now and again, you're just going to come out with the wrong answer. But like, we limit the hallucinations, which means if the AI isn't confident in its answer, it's not just going to pick something, which is important. But this is just a decent thing to include outside of Squid in general when you're working with AI. And then only use the provided context to create the trivia questions is because the AI is going to be trained on a lot of information and it might already know something on the particular topic, but you don't want it to be pulling from that particular topic. You just want it to be pulling from the context, or in this case, I do. And what I provided as context here is I uploaded a markdown file with all of our documentation in it. Yeah, it was a lot. I think I removed our API docs because those don't end up translating well to the format of a multiple choice question, but like the rest of the documentation does. So if I want to see how this is going to perform, I can click test chat. And like, it doesn't even matter what I say in this case, because I've set it up not to like, it has a specific response format, and this is what's going to give me every time, no matter what I say. Love it. And then let's look at the question. So, and the reason I chose 5 is pretty arbitrary. Like maybe for a regular trivia, I'm thinking there might end up being 10 questions or something like that, depending on how long it takes. But this, it's for testing purposes, right? And I did say that I wanted this to be for any topic and not just Squid, but you can see how we're kind of building the progression. We're going to test it out. We're going to make sure that it works as expected. And then from there we will, programmatically build it such that you can provide the context. So in this case, I did it in the Squid Cloud console, but you can actually provide your instructions and contexts and create profiles programmatically as well. So, when the time comes for that point in the app where someone might be providing a URL or providing a file, then I would be handling this programmatically instead of given this specific context here. So let's see how it did. So I love that it makes a quiz title and quiz synopsis for you automatically. It just like, it read my stuff and decided what it was about. I don't know. I still get just excited about the powers of AI sometimes. It's, even though I'm lucky enough to get to use this pretty regularly, sometimes it's just still kind of a surprise to me that it works that way, So yeah, here's where we are at with it. Let's see. So Squid API integration and usage trivia. It's not my favorite title because it's not really just about the API, but good enough. And I'm kind of thinking going forward, we might provide those titles for searchability purposes so that, if someone's already generated a trivia on Clownfish and it's already in the database, like we'll just be able to pull that. Like it'll be able to make the decision if it needs to create a new trivia game or if it can just pull the existing one. It'll be able to make those decisions. I'll set it up such that it can do that. But in the meantime, title, synopsis, and here are my questions. Test your knowledge on how to integrate and use APIs with Squid, including making requests using helper methods and setting up observables and promises. Don't love that. Again, I might need to like tweak it or even take it out. I don't know how important it is to have a synopsis if it's not particularly accurate. It says, which HTTP is best to use to create API integration for weather data? And this one's kind of interesting because it's pulling from a specific tutorial. And then it does give me, a bash. That's kind of interesting. I think I'm going to need to tweak my context to be a little more specific. What does the use observable hook return? And then it gives you some answers. And then there's a correct answer. And then let's see, let's make sure it's like loading data error complete, loading data error subscribe. Yep. That one's correct. So what is the purpose of use promise? What attribute controls the introductory messages Squid AI widget? Oh, that's interesting. Header title, intro context, message, start message. Correct answer is 1, which would be intro text. Oh, and then it gives you, right, of course, it gives you an explanation. So it builds the explanation as well. And then it includes a source, which is interesting because I did not, I gave it this formatting and it made up another category to use. Maybe I do want the source. Maybe I like the source. I probably do want the source because I think that's useful as I'm going along to see how I need to tweak my instructions and how I need to tweak my context to make it more accurate, you know? Sorry, I might sneeze. Oh. Sorry. I noticed yesterday my allergies have started to hit me. I've been keeping up with my allergy medicine, but what can you do? Cool. Yeah, so I'll just include that, and then I'll actually include that in my code as well, because I think that's important, especially during this coding process. So this kind of gives you the idea of the functionality of it. And then if I click embed widget, what this gives me is I can just embed this exact widget that I just used for test chat. I can embed that into my application. And so that's what I've done here. Oh, and I have my intro text here. I guess if I was going to keep using it, I would probably change that. But yeah, so going into here, that's why I have this over here. So I can perform the same action and say, hello. Oh, gotta set it to public because I'm using the widget. There we go. I might need to refresh. I might have made it angry. Song's starting to grow on me. The same 5 seconds of the same song. It's starting to grow on me. It's good. I know what I did. I know what I did. So I changed out the project that I was working with. Doesn't really matter why, but I'm working with a different app, and then I hadn't updated my widget here. So my widget is for the old one. So I could say, I'm going to change out Rudder's text to be, let's create a trivia game. Cool. And now over here, let's create. Beautiful. Hello. Now it's going to create the game for me. There we go. So as you can see, it's the same functionality. And what's great about this is I can get started right away. And for, depending on your use case, if you're building this into a work application and you need it to be able to answer questions about your policies or your documentation, like this has like some decent customization for right outside the box. But I'm going to be doing things quite differently than this, but I think this is like a pretty good starting point for testing purposes. I will eventually remove it, but it's a good way to kind of like see along the way how it's going. Love it. And then what I've done in the meantime, sorry, let's look at the formatting of my project for just a minute. So in my app, I have my front end, which is that React app built with Vite. And then I have back end, which is my Squid back end that I can run locally or deploy. And that tells my resources. It tells, how do I say this? It communicates with the various resources that you've connected to and says how other front ends or other applications connected to that backend, how they can communicate with them. So you can set up security functionality, you can set up different features with it. And so looking at diving into that backend, the only area you ever have to worry about is this service area. So I have this example service that comes automatically. Just probably want to rename it to be something a little more useful, but it comes with one function out of the box, which basically allows, insert, read, write, access to the built-in database, which is fine for development purposes, but generally, as quickly as possible, you're going to want to change that to be something more specific. So as you can see with this part right here, like this is just a function in TypeScript, right? It's got a name, it's got a return type, and then you just say what it does. And you could put anything that you want in here. You could, this is one that I like a lot. Like if they're authenticated, they can do it. If not, they can't. That's something that Squid provides out of the box. You could also do this. And then, maybe like, maybe they have an admin attribute. If they've got the admin attribute, then they can do it. Like there's just, and these are just like the most basic examples, right? You could get really streamlined and very specific about like what people are allowed to do. Like maybe only certain departments, they have an attribute that says what department they belong to. That says if they can access something, for example. And you could set it up. In this case, it's read and write and insert, but you could change that to be specific actions. You can say what area of the database are they trying to update, or what area are they trying to interact with, what action are they trying to take, and based on that, like you could just get really streamlined, like very specific with it. But yeah, we're just keeping it vague here for funsies while I'm working locally. And then I've set up a webhook here. I'm calling it Clear Docs, and it's an escape hatch. I always like having something like this when I'm building an application that can just delete the stuff in my database as I start to kind of build garbage, right? Like as I'm testing, if something, I need to repeat the action or I need to make some changes to it, and there's just like icky old data that's sitting in the database, this is just going to clear everything I have in there. And this first function goes to the Squid collection in the database called count, and it deletes this one document in it. And this is the one that stores that increment counter that you see here. I guess I could click it. It doesn't really matter, but I actually don't want to for the reason of the second one. So that would just delete that information. And then this second one, I have a collection called Trivia Quiz. So this would be a collection of documents called Trivia Quiz. And you can compare that to, if you work in SQL, this would kind of be like a table, a specific table called Trivia Quiz. I'm querying all the documents in it and then just deleting them. So if I have just like excess trivia information left over that I don't want, I can delete it. So going back to my integrations, boom. If I go to my built-in database, I can browse my data. And this browser shows up no matter your source. So if you connect an external database, you'll see the exact same thing. Like the exact same amount of information. You'll see all of your collections and your documents. You can preview them. You can filter them. It allows you to just have a sneak peek about what's going on in your data, because as you can see, I'm not displaying any of this information just yet. I'm starting to build that infrastructure. So looking at this here, I've created one trivia quiz before. It's got a randomly generated document ID, but at some point, you might want to make it specialized. It really depends on your use case. And you can also use specific fields as your document ID, as long as they provide a unique ID, because this has to be unique within your collection. And so I have a quiz title, I have a quiz synopsis, I have the questions, and there's also information here like message for correct answer and message for incorrect answer. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, because there was a previous version of this application that I was working on where it had some extra fields, again, because I was going to be trying to work with this other quiz framework, and it had certain fields in it, but I'm not going to need those now. So it'd be nice to just be able to just delete this information off the bat, right? And that's something that I have this kind of escape hatch URL for. So let's give it a try and see if I can just delete the information that's in there. Oops, just kidding. It'd open the URL in a different window, so you can't see it, but essentially it's just an empty window because it's just a webhook. So webhooks are generally used to connect to some kind of external source. Certain data sources that have asynchronous actions attached to them will want to communicate with webhooks, so they can just let you know what action was taken. So an example in like, banking or payment processing, you might want to be notified when something has happened. Has an invoice been created? Has it been paid? Has someone made a deposit? Anytime these actions happen, you might want to tell other services about it and take actions based on that. Like you might want to then be able to update their information, their profile in a database or something like that. And so webhooks make that possible by providing an endpoint to your service, so that generally there'll be some kind of a UI or somewhere within that, like in your payment processor, like Stripe or something like that. You provide that, you provide your URL to that, and it's going to ping that endpoint when that action happens. It generally has some information in the body to tell you what happened and to whom, so that you can then use that information to take some other action. We actually have a tutorial that shows connecting Squid webhooks to Stripe. Yeah, so definitely check it out if you're using Stripe payments. The biggest challenge of creating that tutorial was figuring out how to serve Stripe webhooks locally, so their side of things to so I wanted to set up a webhook such that when an invoice is generated or something like that, it pings our Squid endpoint. So I had to figure out how to make it generate that invoice. It was like a whole thing. But anyway, definitely check it out if you're interested in incorporating webhooks. But in this case, I'm just using it because I can ping this URL and it'll just take the action for me. I don't have to do anything in my database or in my code rather. And so as you can see now, the UI also updates automatically. So I'm hanging out here, and in real time, it told me that this document was gone. So I have successfully deleted my data. And I'm going to be able to get rid of this count in a minute because I'm just going to remove that from the front end. In fact, I'm just going to do it. We don't need it there. Yeah. Because if I do click it, I can delete that information, but then I'm going to need those. It's going to yell at me, but we'll leave it for now. Then it shows up as a collection here. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. But in my mind, I just don't want that other collection showing up here, the count collection. I just want the one that I actually care about, which is this trivia quiz. So now this is just an empty application. So there, great. I cleared my data. Where did I get that data from, actually? How did I get that to appear in the database to begin with? Well, I actually did it. There we go. Through this webhook here, generate trivia. So again, I just have a regular function. And then by adding this, what we call Squid decorator, that says webhook, I'm labeling it as a webhook, which makes it then generates a URL for it and works as a webhook. And I give it a name, and that's the name that ends up being at the end of my webhook endpoint. So this one calls this AI chatbot trivia generator. And that is this function right here. So I ask my AI agent to generate a trivia quiz. And again, it doesn't even matter what I say to it as it's set up right now, because it's set up simply to do the thing that I asked. And I'm logging the result because things go wrong sometimes. And this gives me an idea of where they could potentially have gone wrong. And they definitely had gone wrong when I was working on this earlier. And then it calls create new trivia. I'm going to start labeling these functions better because they're getting a little redundant in their names, and they're not add trivia to database, I think. So let's. Yeah, I like that better. I think that's a better, more complete name for what it is. Makes a lot more sense to me that way. But yeah, so I'll start renaming things just for funsies. But like basically what I've done is I've created this webhook that's going to generate the trivia for me. And let's click it. Maybe. And so, well, you know, I'll actually just show you what that looks like now because I've described it in beautiful detail. It just looks like this because there's no web page, right? It's just an endpoint. I could be calling it using curl or something like that as well. Generally, it wouldn't be called from a browser. Again, it would be called by some other service, but there's just no reason to, sorry, I'm getting comfortable in my chair. I don't know if you're one of those people that I just can't sit regular in a chair for any measure of time. Okay, so it pinged it. And like, again, I haven't even set up a message for it to respond. It really doesn't matter. Let's see if it worked. Okay, so in my console logs, in my terminal logs here, you can see the console logs went through. Oh, wow, these are, wait, it's, oh my God. I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, but it's not just like pulling randomly from all of the context. It's picking like one area of the documentation and like theming it around that. This is why I kind of like having the synopsis because it's giving me information about how the AI is thinking about things. And I could switch out to a different large language model and see how that impacts it. I might end up finding that there's another one that gives me a more specific or interesting answer that works better for this use case. You know, again, I just generally default to ChatGPT because it's been so far ahead of the other models. But, you know, yeah, I've definitely heard things about, is it, who's up and coming and making it work? Is it Llama? One of them, I saw that their latest model is like much better than their previous ones. Anyway, so these ones are all about image generation in Squid. Which method is used to create an image generator in Squid AI? Oh, yeah, because it's just logging as answers array. And I can see them here. Can I answer them? That's okay. I can. It would be .ai. So whenever you're using an AI feature in Squid, it's squid.ai. And so the correct answer is 2, 0, 1, 2. Yeah, exactly. I should be able to answer my own questions. That's important. Which model name is used to provide example for generating an image? That's not a great question. So I'm going to have to think about how I can tweak my instructions to make it give better questions. Because like no one's looking at the example right now. The model used in the example is Dolly. Like, yeah, it's like more like a quiz than a trivia right now. And then what is the default output format for images generated using Stable Diffusion Core options? I'm gonna, oh shoot, I should like, oh shoot, I looked. To be fair, I was gonna say JPEG, so I was gonna be wrong. It's PNG. I'm liking the source. I think that's helpful. Which of the following is not a style? I'm gonna try to cover that up. Okay. Style preset available. This is, so what's interesting about these Stable Diffusion questions is I've just been using Dolly for our image generating. And so I don't know. I'm gonna say analog film. So 0, no, 3. Watercolor is oh, that's a good one. I thought of a good explanation because I would have thought watercolor would be an image you could generate out of the bat. I'm impressed. What function is used to ask questions? The Squid AI chatbot in the provided example. So again, yeah, this like in the provided example thing, I'm gonna have to explain it out of it. But more importantly, ta-da, it's in my database, right? But yeah, let's go back to the integration. And this is something that like is just something you get better at, but is I'm always practicing is like, how do you tweak your instructions to get the right outcome from your AI agent? And the answer is just this. It's just what we're doing here. Is a little bit of trial and error. You start to get a feel for it, and it's kind of hard to, you know what? Okay. If you're familiar with Amelia Bedelia, and like if you grew up, I don't know if this is just maybe in the United States, but there's these children's books called like Amelia Bedelia, and they're maybe a second, third, fourth grade reading level, and it's that the joke is always that Amelia Bedelia doesn't understand idioms, and she takes everything very literally. So she does funny things because if you're using the language directly as written, humorous things happen. And I think of your AI agent a little bit like Amelia Bedelia. It's only going to do exactly like if you want it to do something, you need to be very specific about what you want it to do, because it'll be very literal. Like I've told it to make trivia questions, and it's done that, right? It's done that. But you know, when it's asking what's in a provided example, like that's not going to work in a trivia setting, right? So I need to kind of figure out how I'm going to work that out of it a little bit. So let's think about it for a second. If you see smoke coming out of my ears, yeah, I got to think about it for a second. So that's what's going to happen. That's kind of where I wear these so you can't see my brain melting, thinking about how I could tell it. What do you think? What's the best way to say, don't ask, like you want to use the examples, but like don't ask specific questions about the content of examples. I think I like that. Like don't ask specific questions about the content of examples. We'll just stick with that for a moment and see what happens. And so going back to my integrations, let's create a new one and see what happens. And then like if it looks semi-decent, we can kind of just move on to the implementation, because I would like to start to be able to show these in the console, or sorry, in the application, you know, move on to the step of actually like showing that information and how you would do that, so that, you know, you can get a feel for that. So we're going to do our webhook again. And actually this time I'll just copy it so it doesn't open in the wrong window. Done. All right, so she's finished running, and let's see how it's going. Okay. Oh, interesting. It did them both about image generation still. So again, I've got to like be more specific, but for the sake of showing things in the console, it just like, in the provided example, I'm wondering if there's some kind of caching going on here. Yeah, I'm definitely curious if there's some kind of caching going on here. Oh, no, that's just a regular rudder. That's not my... Caching can be really helpful, especially if you're doing tasks like, asking it to query your database or generate images and stuff. Like that can help a lot with the speed. But I'm just wondering now. That's always like an interesting and fun part of an important part of being a developer advocate is like making sure that stuff like this, if it is caching, like that needs to be documented, right? And so, okay, so this one's okay. So this one's doing a different one. So what exactly? All right, test your knowledge. What is the main purpose of security? That I like that one. What method is used to insert a new document? This is beautiful. This is great. Okay. Sorry, the silence is setting it because I'm thinking, right? So this one is great. Like this is definitely what we want. I'm just going to be annoying. There we go. So I can get my webhook URLs at the bottom here. Copy. Paste. This is usually the point in it where one of our co-founders might come in and point out why this very obvious thing is happening. Okay, so this is a different one. This is a different one. I'm going to write that down. What? Because I'm curious. Like, there's got to be some caching going on. I'm going to ask about it because it is my job to make sure that it is in our docs, so that I can tell everyone about it. Awesome. Source, context provided, so this is now it's just saying context provided, which I don't. What? Yeah. Why is it? Like I said, it's like Amelia Bedelia. You have to say exactly what you want from it. So then we'll go back here and we'll go here. To read the question and answer. Save. Cool. Yeah. So this, you can see, I think that this is a valuable part of like observing the process, is knowing that you're going to gradually have to build and test it. But cool. We have a couple. We have a couple quizzes here now. We have 3 actually. And that's the other thing that I need to do is figure out how to decide which one we're going to be displaying in the view and make sure that it's displaying the correct one. I think one miracle at a time. Let's just work on displaying it, shall we? So we're good with our backend for a while. Let's check out what's going on in the front end so that we can actually start displaying our quiz. And I think that maybe just to start, we'll just display it with an app. I have plans to have like a question card component. So basically like each question would be displayed. They'll be displayed one at a time. There might be some swiping motion or something as you're answering each one progressively. And then it would like, you know, tell you your score at the end. But just to show you how you display, like how you read data. Let's just do that, shall we? So we do that using this in React and Angular, actually, because we have an Angular SDK as well. We have a few hooks provided that connect to different Squid features, which can be very helpful, especially when you wanted to have some real-time capabilities set up really easily. So we're going to say trivia collection equals, and it's trivia dash quiz is the name of our collection. So that's the name of where we can find our data equals, okay, use collection. Collection name is trivia quiz. And notice here that there's a second optional parameter, which is integration ID. So by default, if you do not provide this, it is assumed that you're referring to the built-in database. But whenever you connect a different database to Squid, say you have some kind of MongoDB instance, or maybe a Microsoft SQL Server, or Snowflake, or Oracle DB, and you connect those to Squid, you provide an integration ID, whatever you want to call it, again, to remember how you want to identify it in your code to make it really intuitive to you as to which database you're referring to. So if you want to pull data in this case, or manipulate data from a database besides the built-in database, this is where you would specify which collection you're talking about that is in a different database. Okay, and then this is going to be use query. So the use query hook hooks into a document query. So if you want to query all of the documents in a collection, or maybe you want to query specific documents in a collection, this allows you to specify just fully customizable what data you want to pull from your collection. So in this case, we're just pulling all of it, and we're going to call dereference, which means I don't need the document references. I don't need to I just want the data inside of it. I don't need the kind of wrapper that says that this is a reference to some document in the database. Actually, I need to import my types. I'm actually going to import both of them, and then it'll yell at me if I don't need it. Cool. So this is going to be a collection of quiz type. And I need to remind myself what quiz has, and yes, explanation. And then remember, I added source. So back over here, source string, need to add that to my type. And yeah, eventually I might want to get rid of it or not, but it's just kind of a nice way to be able to see where it's getting that information from. Oh, you can see I've started to build this out, but we're going to put that away for now. And so and then over here, I like the squid logo for now. Let's just get ourselves a new div, get ourselves some curly boys, and then data. Okay, hang on here, because this is supposed to be a quiz type. So we use query. So data is of quiz type. Oh, it's an array, right? Because I have, right. Okay. I'm like, why is it not? All right, so we're just going to pull the 0th one. That's not going to be very helpful, but we just want to look at it, right? Quiz synopsis. Look at that. Ta-da! So I was able to just display my my data and just using these 2 lines. That's it. Like this says to pull this data, and by default, it uses observable. So if for some reason that information gets updated, which of course can happen in all sorts of situations, if you have some kind of real-time application, that's going to update in your view automatically. Simply by doing this, that's it. And then the data displays here. So of course I can display my questions as well, which I might just do now. So maybe I will go back to this question card. And, you know, I'm going to have this on-click functionality so that when you select a specific answer, you know, it like does something as a result. So I'm going to want to import question card, and then we'll put that down here. Now, okay. Okay, so this is just for one question. It's so funny how, like, when you step away from your code for 48 hours, you're like, who did this? Who did this? What were they thinking? Okay, this is cool, but then I did I not include the question? Don't mind me. Or mind me. That's totally up to you. And then we'll just, don't want it to be do want it to be let's overthink about it. We'll just make it an H3. H3. That might be long for a quiz. I don't know. We'll see. This is going to be got the curlies. Question dot question. Probably want that, right? And then we'll put question dot explanation, and maybe the source as well, just so we're starting to display some things in the view. And then over here, back over here, we're going to do a question card. Oh, yes, but yes. Did you get all that? Yes, but yes. Good. Questions map. So yeah, I guess for now we're going to display them all, and they're not really cards, right? Like this is just nothing right now. This is just a sort of blank, empty who's its. What's my prop type? Question equals question. And then I need the on click. Getting weird in my chair again, trying to get comfortable. Let's see. So it's going to need to. Yeah, just so it's something's there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not. Because I'm only saying half of it out loud. This is, I look at my favorite streamers, and it is, I think people being me, but I don't think I'm the only one, really underestimate the skill set required to, complete a task and sort of narrate the whole time. And sometimes, like, they'll be talking about something completely unrelated when they're playing a game. And yeah, maybe if it's one that they play all the time, they're like incredibly good at balancing that. But sometimes it's like the first time they've ever played this game and they're just doing it at the same time. That just blows my mind. It's quite a skill. It really is. And okay. I guess I don't need this question. Okay. Because that just ends up passing to this guy. And is he going to be mad at me that I never did unclick? It might be. We'll see. Yes, it is. It is going to be mad at me. Reading quiz title. Oh, interesting. Why is this now? Because there was a quiz title. So why is it now saying that there isn't one? I feel like I must have done something else. Okay, so it's not that. Well, I could simply say data and have it like do all that. Or let's look at, yeah, it's like it's just not. It's like it's just not pulling that information now for some reason. The old turn it off and on again. Do I have to wrap it if I do that? Yeah. That's what I thought. So sometimes, as you can see, it ends up being more about, all right. Okay. Let's just see if we can get this to come back, first of all. Oh, that's interesting. Because this is saying that there we go. When in doubt, wrap it in a div. When in doubt, wrap it in a div, and it should work. No words. No words. I know I need a key prop. Leave me alone. Okay, so you can see how it's starting to come together here. And again, right now we're just having it randomly show one of the entries. So actually, I don't even know which one of these it is off the top of my head. And so, I would say that the next step would be, I think instead of having the AI make the titles for the trivia, we would provide those titles. And then you could have a drop-down menu where you're selecting from specific ones. And then instead of just having this be query and just querying all of them for no reason, it would simply query the one. It would just pull the document with the correct title. And then, and I could use doc at that point. I could make some changes such that it's just pulling the single document that I need and still getting those updates. And I think that gives us a really good place to go from here. I'm really excited about it because I've got a ton of ideas about the best way to display that information. But I think we made some good progress here. And again, the squid part was so incredibly easy. So to kind of look at what we've done so far. Hello, Max. Welcome. I was just about to go over like what we've done so far to our application. We have a trivia generator AI agent that I've created that has some instructions to create some trivia questions based solely on the provided context. And the context that I gave it in this case was a markdown document that has all of Squid Cloud's documentation. So it basically becomes a trivia about Squid Cloud's documentation. But of course, you could do this for anything that has some kind of unstructured data as information. So you could provide it a URL as context to a website. You could provide it PDFs or images, whatever you'd want as context, and it will generate the trivia questions based solely on that provided context. So, and then we tested it out in here using test chat. And then, again, doesn't really matter what I say because I configured it not to respond to me willy-nilly, but to provide the specific information that I've requested here. And we saw that along the way, you kind of need to tweak your instructions based on the responses you're getting back, because the best way to describe how LLMs work is a little bit like the books Amelia Bedelia, where it's going to do things in the very literal sense. And this can have some unexpected consequences. So it's a good idea to start out pretty vague, because sometimes the more specific you get, there are some other kind of surprising side effects to that as well. So start out vague, see where it goes from there. Definitely do multiple tests because it's going to kind of give some variance each time, and notice if you need to add some more specific instructions along the way to kind of give it bumpers and guide it to give you the result that you want. I did include this. If you have low confidence, don't make something up. Squid does a lot of work to minimize hallucinations. So it's not necessarily something that you need to include, but I just kind of like to, out of habit, especially because I do that whenever I have to use ChatGPT or something like that. Yeah, and so this is right now an example of the response it gave us based on the context I provided. And it's important to know that this context is huge, right? This is all of our documentation. And so I've noticed that without me asking it to do so, the AI tends to kind of focus on one particular topic within the documentation and make trivia about that. So every now and again, it's just like random questions, and sometimes it's more specific. So I'm probably going to want to specify what I want it to do if I wanted to pick a theme within whatever context you provide, or if I want it to be more general. It's kind of up to you in that regard. So yeah, and then I specified that I want to have a quiz title and quiz synopsis that it generates based on the context. It just comes up with that. And I'm finding it's a little bit hit or miss what it writes here. So it said API integration trivia. So the idea would be these would all be about this API integration. So we'll see if it actually does end up being about that. And it says, test your knowledge on integrating APIs and using various features of the Squid Cloud platform. That's actually a pretty good synopsis. You just might want to be like, I've given an explanation for what this source attribute is, but I haven't told it what a quiz title should be. And I haven't told it what a quiz synopsis should be. So if I want it to be more specific or like follow some specific guidelines for the title and synopsis, I'm going to want to provide it for that. So we'll see what I need to, like, how specific do I need to get, and then it provides the 5 questions for me. It tells me what the specific answer is. So we tested it here. And then I embedded that same agent into my demo app that's running locally right now so that we could test it there. And again, it works just the same way. Yo, happy Friday. Yeah, it doesn't matter what I tell it. So it's nice. It's not going to get off topic for you. It's set up such that it follows the instructions that you provide. And so now it's just creating a different trivia quiz for me. There you go. And it's and it creates questions for me. But one of the things that's interesting is this is about a specific tutorial. I wonder if I should remove the tutorials from my context, because this isn't really about using Squid. This is about this ends up being like more like a quiz testing. If you've read like the one where your teacher tests to see if you did the reading that you were supposed to be doing or something. Because it's like, what is the purpose of the navbar component in the provided app.tsx file? Like, that just has to do with the specific tutorial. And I could tell it, don't do that, but I think it might be better just to like take that out of the context, because this isn't particularly useful stuff. So I'll think about that. But again, I want this to be able to be about any topic, not just Squid. I'm just using that as an example. And I kind of like that right now because it's giving me a lot of information about things that can go wrong. So I'll definitely test with some other sources. So that's how I tested it within here. But no action took place at that point with it. And so then we moved on to, we want to be able to take that information and write it to the database so that we can actually display it. And we did that inside of this service within the Squid backend. I feel like I might sneeze again. And we did that within the service in the backend thusly. So I have this function that calls AI chatbot trivia generator. And I've put this webhook decorator on it. And that alone is all it takes to turn this into a webhook. It provides an endpoint then, which is great for connecting to external services, or it's also great when you're developing and testing, I've noticed. Just makes it easier to implement things. So if I go to AI chatbot trivia generator, which is right here, I go to this Squid AI chatbot trivia generator, ask generate a trivia quiz, and then I also just have a log of the result, and it's going to add the trivia to the database. I'm sorry, Max, I'm not exactly sure what you mean about talking some words in Hindi. Do you mean to the chatbot? Because I have it set up such that it doesn't matter what I prompt it right now, because it is set up with this prompt. So like I could say anything to it and it's just going to do this task. It's not going to respond to other languages. But it's also important to note that like the language that your AI understands is going to be completely connected to the large language model that you connect. So all of these ones were trained in English, so they're going to understand English. So all of these ones, as far as I know, are English. Oh, Claude is the one I was thinking of that has improved a lot. I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, so these are just, you can choose the model that you want. You can also provide a model. And so if you wanted it to be for another language, you would use a large language model that was trained on that. And so, yeah, I have this webhook set up such that I can just trigger this function on the back end that's going to generate the trivia, just like what we saw in the console here, just like we saw here, the same information, and then is set up to add it to the database, boop, thusly. And this is the entire line that adds that information to the database. It goes to the trivia quiz collection. It creates a new document with a randomly generated ID. And I think I'm going to change that part of it. I might change that part right now. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Hang on. It's a quiz. Okay. There we go. Yeah, I was like, why is it not doing that? All right. Quiz title. All right, so now when it generates them, rather than having a randomly generated ID, like the ones that we see here, see, these are just arbitrary because you want to be able to uniquely identify your quiz. It will make it with this specific title. The one consideration about this is during testing, it won't matter once this is fully created, but you see that these two have the same title. This one has a different one, but these two have the same title. And this insert method only works on inserting a new document. So if there was already a document at that space, it would throw an error. So I could certainly set it up such that it would update the existing one. And if I did that, I just don't see the point. I just don't see the point in doing it like that, because it's going to, like, why would I need to override the existing trivia quiz? Do you know what I'm saying? So I could put it in a try catch block, and then if it just has the same one, I could write it to the database with a slightly different title. That would be kind of dumb, right? Or I could just let it error out. Because the idea is, so this is what I'm thinking. Okay, number one, let's just do it. We've made this webhook, right? Let's just call it again. Boop. Oh, lost it. So we're going to paste it in. And so that's going to run that function behind the scenes, which is going to create a new trivia quiz and write it to my database. So we'll let it run its course, and eventually it's going to show up here. I apologize. Here on, so I'm using a streaming service, and all I can see is the name that is provided as your handle, I guess. So from my view, all I see is your name appears to be Max Yo. That's just what it's displaying as for whatever reason. Because I'm not just on YouTube right now. I'm on multiple sources, so it just aggregates them, and it only shows me a certain amount of information about who's viewing. So kind of just based off of that. So yeah, let's see if something broke. It's always possible. This is cool. Okay, so we can see logged here that it did run that. Cool. Now, did it write it to my database? This does eventually update, but I'm just going to refresh it. Refreshing. Okay, so you see these have randomly generated document IDs. This is a specific document ID. So sorry about that. Is it Jitesh? Jitesh, is that how I say it? One of the wonderful and terrible parts about being named Jennifer is no one gets my name wrong because it's so boring. I think that there's so many people in my age bracket that are named Jennifer. And you know how when you think of somebody with a name like Gertrude or something, you kind of associate it with a specific generation. I know as we get older, like the name Jennifer is going to be associated with my generation forever, which is such an interesting thing. I could go by my middle name, but it's like equally as boring. Very uninspired name. But all right, here we go. Let's see how it did. Let's okay. Squid AI image generator and chatbot. So I have another thought about this then, right? Like, I don't want to pull down all of my trivia quizzes every single time, but it might be nice. It's not that much data. Like, it's really not that much data. So it might be fine to just pull them all down at once. And then basically I'd have a drop down here that just displays their titles. And then when you click on it, it would update. And again, it's not going to be like this format here. This is simply just to display my data while I'm working. The idea is that it'll be more interactive. There'll be kind of cards that appear where you can select the answer and it might swipe out of the way and be exciting, but like, you know, one step at a time, right? And so I think it would be fine to just query all of my quizzes. But my other thought was then I could, if I wanted to go crazy with it, like I could have a separate collection that is simply an array of the quiz titles, and then display that. And then when someone clicks it, it just downloads the quiz. But honestly, especially if I'm doing this at events, it might be a good idea to just have it downloaded already, because internet can be very spotty when you go to events. So being able to have that already down there so that there's not a delay, like, oh, someone selected this trivia quiz and now it's taking a long time to load. Like that would be kind of a bummer. And then there's still like the option later on, if someone's generating a quiz on the fly, I think it's still going to help to have the quiz title here. So yeah, let's clear out what we have here. Let's go back to our delete method. Oh, something I want to point out while I'm over here is that we have the schema. So when you connect a database, or if you're using the built-in database and you just start writing some data, Squid is great about automatically detecting your database schema. And so if you're using some external data source, this is something that you're going to, when you connect it, it's going to be like, is this your schema? Are there any changes that you need to make to that schema? And you can adjust it thusly, like I can change things about it. And notice there's these descriptions here of different areas that I can do for AI. And that's something that will come up in the future. But you could say like what keys are required. And primary key, what that's referring to is like this key is used in the document's ID. So in this case, the new formatting that we've put together here, here, then quiz title would be a primary key in this case, because rather than using this randomly generated one, I'm using a specific field as the ID to uniquely identify the document. So again, it's got to be something that is only existing in that document. But you can even have multiple keys as primary keys. So there could be a bunch of information that is uniquely identifying that document. So if this looks all good, then you save the schema and that's automatically detected. And that can be helpful. It's required for external data sources, but then it can be helpful for AI related tasks as well. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with where things are at right now. I might like work a little bit on the UI offline, because that just ends up a lot of me just kind of like dead-eyed, like working on making things pretty. And then when we come back, when I'm streaming next week, I would love to do work on that drop down so you can select specific quizzes. And I also want to be able to generate the trivia quiz programmatically rather than just specifically just having to do this one here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, rather than just having this context, I want to be able to provide it programmatically so that you can provide it within our app. I think that would be a great next step for the next session. And when we come back next week, this is going to be a much more beautiful UI. And if you came in a little later and you're interested in how we got here, yeah, definitely. These are going to be saved on all of the sources. The videos are going to be saved on LinkedIn and on YouTube and on Twitch. So you can always go back, start it over. And I definitely, I want to hear from you about it. Let's go back to just me. A few things to talk about here that I think would be useful to know. This one, I love this one a lot. So if between now and I believe, don't quote me, yes, quote me, August 22nd, we are running what we're calling the Build with Squid contest. And you could kind of think of it as a long running hackathon, such that, when you have the time to work on it, you can work on an application, a project, something that is using Squid, because Squid can connect to any service. So it can be a very flexible thing. So like if you build something cool with Squid, submit it and you can win a $500 Visa gift card. So we're going to be kind of judging the projects. And if you have any questions along the way and you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, you can always connect with us on our Discord server. If you ask questions, I'll be there to answer them. And if you just want to say like, here's my project so far, what do you think of it? Or like, this is the idea that I had. Do you think Squid would work with that? I can help you kind of kick off that process. We can even, set up some time to do some video chat and like walk you through, help you get started, help you like all along the way to be as successful as possible. And the idea is that because Squid is so easy to use, this will be, again, the amount of effort that you might put in a hackathon, but you can do it at your own pace when you have the time. And then you have an opportunity to, win a gift card. So it's pretty exciting. Really, really happy that we're launching this first competition. So for the details, you can check out this blog post. It's at bit.ly, build-with-squid, where you can see sort of the different categories that you can potentially win. You can submit multiple projects if you happen to work on one thing. Definitely check it out. And if you're interested in seeing how to get started with Squid, highly recommend starting with our onboarding here. I provided a link to it, but also if you just go to our website and you click Get Started for free, you would be brought to our onboarding. And actually, what I want to share again while I'm thinking about it is that when you end up in the Squid Cloud Console, because when you're working on a Squid app, you're going to be spending a little bit of time here to get started, whether it's connecting features or just creating a new application. All of that takes place here in the console. If you go to this onboarding section, this pulls up that onboarding flow again. So if you happen to skip it and you want to go back and like give it a try, or do what I did and use this empty starter app to start with that has a React front end using Vite and a Squid backend, it just a couple of commands spins it up. It's ready to go. I love that. Great for hackathons and, proof of concept applications. That's kind of my starting point for most things these days. You can find that there. So highly recommend checking that out in our onboarding. And yeah, please join our contest. Find us on Discord to talk about it. I'm Jen Person. I'm Squid's developer advocate. Before I was at Squid, I was at Google. And during my time at Google, I worked on backend as a service products like Firebase and Google Cloud. And I also did some work in the machine learning space with TensorFlow JS and media pipe. So a lot of that web space with me, ML, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, have some experience in these areas, and I'd love to help you build something awesome with Squid. So thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate it. And, you know, hopefully these streams are gradually improving. Again, I don't necessarily have the best upload speed, so hopefully there hasn't been too much lag on that end of things. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Bye, y'all. Enjoy your weekend. How do I leave? Oh no, isn't this always funny how you have that like awkward thing? Do you ever have that when you're in the like a meeting at work and everyone's saying goodbye, and then like you're trying to figure out how to like X out because maybe it's like Meet and you normally use Zoom or vice versa, and it's just like you and like one other person in a race to figure out how to end the call. So you're just like quietly and awkwardly like face to face. Anyway, thank you for stopping by.